Thank you, Wayne. Good evening. Welcome to the work session of the Town of Cicero Planning Board. The work session tonight will be followed by our regular meeting. The work session is for the purpose of discussing the zone change request from Gabrielle Development and the Route 11 project for a regional commercial to PUD zone change. So we thought it would be good for the planning board and the other members of our team to discuss what it is we want to come up with as far as a recommendation for an approval with condition, or disapproval for that request. I suspect that tonight is just the beginning of the discussion. We're not going to come up with a resolution to that question this evening. Mr. Parrish is on a well-deserved vacation. Kate Farello is here for the town engineer. Thank you for that, Kate. She's going to provide some information for us. And I know the applicant reached out to Steve, and they have some additional things they want to discuss before we finalize everything. I also would like to welcome Heidi Lamode from the zoning office, the clerk from the zoning office. We have her in place of Mr. Parrish to run the screen. So thank you for that, Heidi. Heidi is our backbone. She makes everything look like it runs smooth. So that, Kay, would you like to start out with the discussion? What would you want to share with the board?
Planning board. They gave their presentation a few weeks ago at the planning board, and just a few things that I thought could be emphasized or talked about. One was that in the discussion of the traffic study, one thing that I don't think that they talked about. So when they submitted their traffic study, DOT came back with not a just it's okay, put the slide in. They asked for a full intersection. So originally they thought they were just going to do a T intersection, which would help everybody on the east side of Route 11. DOT is requiring them to do a full intersection. So that means the businesses on the west side of Route 11 can be tied in. So I think through some of the other planning board actions, a couple of those businesses connect. So that would, I think, if all goes well, 4 businesses would be hooked up to that light and could make a left turn onto Route 11. So I just thought that should be pointed out, that the intersection, I think, is a good thing. Cross access, I don't know if, I can't remember how much discussion got into about the cross access into north going into Walmart and south going into the Wide Waters property, Wegmans and Marshalls and such. So those cross accesses are really important to the town. So however that goes, I think if they aren't showing the way we want them to, I think that's an important condition that we get the cross access in the location that will benefit, future development, or, just future all the people that go in between all those properties. Public roads, I don't know if they talked about it at the meeting, but when they came in and met with us, there was a discussion of making the whole road public all the way down, I think, to that circle. I think that needs to be discussed. I think the cross access should probably be a public road, but if the road that goes into the apartment complex, I'm not sure. I think we should involve the highway superintendent on that discussion of whether that wants to be a public road. And then just my biggest concern is sewer capacity. So sewer capacity, we did speak with the engineer, and they're doing a desktop analysis, but after the flooding of August 19th, and we had some surcharging into that Oak Orchard. This is tributary to the Oak Orchard wastewater treatment plant. WEP had a lot of problems. So they called, and on a couple projects, they said, we can't, we might need to do flow metering. So their analysis might need to be a lot deeper to see how the system behaves in wet weather. Because we're starting to run up against capacity restraints. So I just think, and we did we discussed that with, not in that much detail with the developer, but just so they're aware that WEP is going to, Cicero may say, we think you're okay, but WEP may say, you've got to do, more. So just so everybody's aware of sewer capacity restraints. That's all I had.
Okay, yeah, all very good points. The sewer capacity, does that come into play with our recommendation? Or is that a town board? Yeah, it does. We'll open up to the board members for any questions or any thoughts, things that you want included or considered in the recommendation. So Joe?
The traffic studies, I mean, still waiting to ready to make any comments.
All right, talk to into your mic.
Sorry,
You too.
I'll reserve my comments for later.
Okay, Mr. Abbey?
All set for now, but I look forward to getting more information.
Mr. Snyder?
Kate, the sewage from White Pine goes where?
Oak Orchard.
See, they said in the paper the other day, it goes to Davis, and I was quite sure that they were wrong.
Well, I believe Davis Road is a pumping station, so all of us, all of this part of Cicero, this
Okay.
building goes to the Davis Road pumping station that then goes to Oak Orchard.
Then goes to Oak Orchard.
Yes.
So with that in mind, and what they're talking about doing at White Pine, that through capacity is in my mind, is a major issue. Relative to the height of our buildings, we're not a metropolis, we're not New York City. I think 3-story buildings are adequate for what we would have in our area. So I live in a 3-story building. I think that's fine. I don't think we need 4-story buildings. It's another issue as it relates to fire, but as Steve told us last time, they all have to be sprinkled. So at least that's one positive thing that will minimize that as a problem. To say that we have the ability of cross access, but do not have cross access, that gives me a problem, gives me agita. Evidently, we can have cross access that actually does access at Walmart, but we certainly can't have it at the other side going to Widewaters because it's the other side of the road they have there is undeveloped and or may even be wetlands. As we were told in our last meeting, the pretty drawing that we had from Syracuse Transportation or whoever did it showed a nice road parallel to 81. The gentleman indicated that there was no way that road was going to be built with the wetlands that we have there now. I think I'd want this project to make sure we do in fact solve the problem at Walmart. And I don't know what that means, not being a traffic engineer, but I think we want that cross access to actually be a part of this project. I think the community behind or in front of the project, they need to be brought in to see whether they in fact want cross access. To me, to be able to drive into this new road along the used car lot and get out at a light makes a lot of sense to me, but it may not to the people that we think we're trying to serve. So I would think, I know there's been some people in that neighborhood that have been quite boisterous about what's going on. So maybe we can contact some of them to see what they think about that whole cross access thing. I, of course, have a real problem with the density, the number of people. I believe the town passed a law that took apartments out of commercial. We did that. I think they did that because they just saw the traffic and the other things, the complications that come up with that. And yet now what we're going to do is, okay, let's change the zoning so they then can in fact build what are in essence apartment houses. And the other thing that scared me is they said the whole project is rental. I thought that the townhouses and the apartments or the buildings down at on the south side, I thought all that was going to be purchase stuff so people could actually, be a homeowner. But I don't think we have any right to say, well, you can't rent all that property, but that's not what I was hoping for when this project was brought to us. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered and a lot of questions that need to be asked. And I think as Chuck and the others have said already, we need more information before we even know what questions we need to ask.
Neil, at what point do we stop asking questions and make the recommendation? Because questions are going to continue as we go through the. So let's take a question like density. Does our recommendation say we want your density to be X or less?
X amount of units, or no more than they would get an RM or something along those lines. But those are all things you should think about in your recommendation, which would be a letter back from you to the applicant.
From me, the planning board. Through a motion.
Well, yeah, you'd want to do it through a motion because you'd want to know where everybody stands on those, I'm counting 6 issues. Consensus on it.
Laws.
Yeah, the Onondaga County Planning Board, I had an opportunity today to read some of it, and I will finish the report that they came out with on that project and highlight the things and how it will affect us. It's interesting. I think they did their homework.
Get it done?
That's me, yeah.
Mr. Merzia. Yeah, from my perspective, everything that's been talked about, I would agree with. I think that the cross connection is extremely important and it's got to be at our approval. What they're showing, I don't think it meets our approval. Route 11 intersection is critical, especially again with our approval, so that the properties on the west side have the ability to utilize that. Density for me is a big point. You know, they're asking for double of what would be allowed in a residential multifamily zone. That's not appropriate to me. So I don't know. I mean, I think we owe it to them too. I mean, we're going to say we want RM. They need to know that now so that they can stop spending money, right? Because it's not just this site. There's more property there. And certainly RM is better than GC, right? If a big box wasn't there, we all agreed on that. And maybe that's something the town board wants to address in the near future. But I think we owe it to them to come up with a number there so that the project's not going to work for them. They can stop trying to make it work for them. And I don't know, you know, it's not like you have a problem, you plug the numbers into a calculator and you come up with an answer, and that's it, right? This is kind of like got to go by gut a little bit. So do we go above the RM, the 200 that would be allowed? They're asking for 400, or do we stick with 200? I don't know how we get to that. Yeah, they talk about building a town center, but they're really building an apartment complex, right? And the town code allows apartment complexes in RM. And RM has a density that would allow 200 here. Seems to me like that's the number. I'm open to some conversation on that.
What's the number for PUD, 400 and something?
They're asking for 400,
440, I thought.
400 total. So they got 220 multifamily and then 180 senior. Comes to 400. And if it was zoned RM, after 201.
I think an item that's very critical is, as Kay was saying, is the sewer situation. I mean, I'd sure like to know what the county sewer people would say right now with their recent history with the flooding, what they would say about the capacity at Oak Orchard. I understand it's at capacity now, and if we have this project, and then we have White Pine project coming. Thank God it's not ours, but it's going to affect us greatly. I would think that you'd almost want to have the sewer people, before you do anything else, agree or disagree that the sewer capacity is there. Or if they say we got to build holding tanks such that only so many gallons per hour will leave the site, no matter what, then that says something to the developer of what they would have to put in as far as infrastructure. I mean, come on, Kate, help me out.
Well, I guess I don't want to. We need to somehow figure out how we're going to work with them. And I'm not sure they'll get, maybe when a project comes in and they have to evaluate and they're going to tell us, this is what you have to do. And their engineer is going to do this flow monitoring study. I mean, we're probably going to get a push comes to shove moment with them, but we don't, as our town, want to be told we can't develop either, so we don't want to get there.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't want this developer to spend more money on what could turn out to be a dead issue that, sorry, they can't build it, or they can only build kind of what we really want with 200 units.
Right. Well, we were very forthright with the developer that this was a concern, and I haven't spoken, whether they're here or not, but, I will have a conversation that, it's probably a more in-depth conversation with WEP after what happened and in light of White Pines, that we probably as a town need to figure out all together, just to see how we're going to go in the future. Because most of our, this corridor right here, south of, this Route 11 corridor is all tributary to the same place. So it will affect how we develop. So.
Right. Steve, any thoughts?
No, I agree with, Kate and I had this discussion with the developer and his representative before the last planning board meeting. So those are all the points we brought up. As it comes to cross access, I know they're proposing areas to cross access for future development, but there's opportunities now to make connections that may work before the future development. There might be a place to put cross access down the road that's better when it gets developed to the south. And they're proposing those locations, but right now you could make connections so someone could get from Walmart all the way to Home Depot. So that, if that's what the board wants to do.
Yeah,
is
that needs to
consider
happen.
this.
That has to happen.
Yeah, it's a bit meandering, but I mean, so they're showing the access. They've moved, you could see, to the Walmart, connection to the rear of the building, rather it was going into the side. And they don't show anything on this plan that connects through the auto dealership to the Whitewater where Marshall's is, which they could potentially do.
Yeah, and I mentioned at the last meeting, those 290 degrees and the cross connection, it's just
Yeah.
not working. It doesn't work the way they have it.
Well, and I'd want to make sure that the cross access to the south doesn't end where on the other side of the line, there's a cotton picking, pond or, wetland that we can't build on anyway. I mean, so I think if we're going to think about that, maybe we as a town have got to spend a couple bucks or have our engineer look at, Kate Plus, look at how would we in fact do a cross access on the south? And can we? And what does that involve? As far as the numbers that Mark has talked about, I think that somewhere between the 200 and what they want, we definitely, I think, need to change that number. I'd be closer to what Mark is talking about than what they're asking for.
Yeah. So if we take the intersection, the Route 11 intersection, is it sufficient enough to say that it must meet our approval to include access from the west? So should we prepare a draft resolution? You need more specifics on density. I know. Yeah, why don't we do that? Because I know they have something else to present to us as well. Steve's not inside.
I think they've taken some of the previous discussion and are rethinking to some degree how they can implement that in their plan and want to talk to the board again.
It wouldn't hurt for them to get on YouTube and watch this evening's meeting.
Good point.
Anything else from anybody? All right, that'll conclude our work session just in time to start our regular meeting. I think we've got 30 seconds. Want to take a quick break? Right, Mark. Ready? Okay, welcome to the regular meeting of the Cicero Planning Board. Would you please join us in the pledge? Mr. Snyder, would you lead us? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes from our September 15th meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review. I know that Mr. Snyder made a couple modifications. Any other comments? We have a motion for approval.
Move they approved as we amended those two big, huge spelling errors. I didn't find how to spell it right, but I found the errors. Cindy does a great job, so this is all in jest.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rosito,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The motion to approve the minutes has passed. Now we'll open up the meeting to public comment. If there's anybody that would like to speak to the planning board regarding any active application, you can come up at this point. Evening.
We're Jim and Jamie Oswald, 17-year residents of Full Street. And we wanted to address a couple of concerns regarding the second item on your agenda tonight for the proposed restaurant on State Route 31. We had a chance to look at the updated sketch plan, and we noticed that the new sketch plan reflects two wet ponds on the property. As I'm sure most of you are aware, tonight, Onondaga County is conducting spraying for mosquitoes in that particular area. We live right next door to it, and we're very concerned about the introduction of two wet ponds for drainage. I'm hoping that the planning board will take the residents of Full Street into consideration when you review the wet ponds proposed on the plan. The other thing that we'd like to address is that the updated sketch plan does not reflect a fence that the property owner has constructed. The town of Cicero has not issued a permit for it, and it does not meet town code. So I think that to have an accurate representation of the sketch plan, that item should be included on it.
Good job.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the board? Nobody else is approaching. We will close the public input and move on to item number 1. This is for the property at 7261 Route 298, proposed 1,750 square foot building. Tim is representing the applicant. Welcome back on this one.
Good evening, Tim Coyer, iNews and Romans. If you want, I have maps, smaller maps, but really nothing's changed since my submittal. From the last meeting, we did add some landscape areas in the front and some proposed trees on the northerly side of the property. But that was really per the county comments and Mark's comments. I do have Mark's latest letter. He would like us to go through the proposed lighting, make sure everyone's familiar with what's going on there and the signage that's on the mounted on the south side of the proposed building. But other than that, his comments, I've addressed everything.
Thank you. Mr. Rosito.
All set.
Mr. Abbey.
I was curious, Tim, the entire parcel is 2.7 acres,
Correct. Yep.
and is there minimum of 2 acres unencumbered to work with?
2 acres of unencumbered, you mean?
Oh, it doesn't apply to that one. Oh, okay.
Oh, gotcha.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
I'm good.
Mr. Bloss.
I'm good.
Mr. Merzio. I'm all set as well. Steve?
All set. Thank you.
Yeah, would you propose a motion? Oh, we need seeker. Mr. Rosito, would you propose the standard seeker, please?
Yes, I propose our standard seeker, and that's a form of motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes for the seeker. Seeker passes. Motion for approval, please.
Yeah.
I'd like to make that a motion.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bloss. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye. Next item on the agenda is for the proposed restaurant that was just discussed on State Route 31. Captain Freeman Associates, representing the applicant.
Good
You're
evening,
here to
Mr.
update us on the sketch plan that was changed, revised.
Pardon?
You're here to update us on the revisions that were just done.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Diane Mata. I am happy to finally be back here in front of the board regarding Flavors Restaurant. I am sorry for the delay of our return, but due to unforeseen circumstances and a missing engineer, we were forced to secure more reliable personnel to help us in this endeavor. Mr. Freeman and Mr. Pirano are now my engineer and architect of record, and I am sure that with their help, our restaurant will finally come to fruition. So I'll turn it over to them to explain what has transpired since we last spoke. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Evening, Scott Freeman, Keplinger Freeman Associates, I live in Liverpool, New York. As Diane stated, Joe Perano, myself, can you hear me? Joe Perano, take that out. Okay. Joe Perano and myself, we met with Diane and we took a closer look at the plan and refined things a little bit. Joe, starting with the architecture, updated the footprint. The current footprint's around 6684 square feet. I know one of the previous comments was, I think on the prior plan, you had 40 or 50 parking spaces. We went with one parking space per 80 square feet. That works out to about 84 spaces. So we got our parking number up. We also, just a little bit about the site. We're coming in right where the existing curb cut is now, which was under the last design team. That was an approved location, so it's 24 foot wide. We didn't get the permit for that yet. This is a concept plan. I just want to give you a little bit on the pieces, components of the project. So we retained that entrance point. We did rotate the building. Once Joe, Diane, and myself walked the site, we came up with the 84 spaces. The building is oriented as such that it focuses on the green space behind the building. We ran the truck radius for a delivery truck on the two dead ends on each end of the building, and it worked for on the north, on the top part of the plan, that's the bar end, so a bar 30-foot truck can get in and out of there. And on the other side, the lower part of the plan, we can get a tractor trail in there, so that all worked well. We went out there and dug some soil percolation tests, and it was a totally dry day, but as soon as the holes were dry for about 10 minutes and then water poured in. So we know we have wet soils. So what we're going to do is design, we didn't get that far yet, but our engineer's looking to design a stormwater detention facility, and it will hold water. And one of the things we're going to do above and beyond the New York State DEC guidelines is we're going to put a pond aerator in there to address, to keep the water nice. We want it to be an amenity. We're not, a lot of people put basins in and they just ignore them and let them grow wild. Flavor's Restaurant is a little different. They're going to do a lot of farm to table. They're going to be growing their own plants, garden vegetables and flowers right here. What's not on these plans yet, it will be a series of walking paths, and there'll be fruit, there'll be vegetables, it'll all be grown, there'll be a walkway there. So it's totally in our best interest to maintain this property. This is not a restaurant on Erie Boulevard where you roll in, you eat, and you leave, and people ignore the landscape. The landscape is, this is a great opportunity for this design team, because it's not just inside, and Joe can talk to the building. The building is connected with views to the outside. So we didn't get the engineering study done yet, but the stormwater detention basin regulations, but those are underway. Christian in my office had several discussions with the fire department in terms of hydrant locations and access, and Joe can speak a little bit to that based on the sprinkler system, the size of the building. So we're moving forward on that. It's not approved, it's preliminary, but we're headed down the right path. There actually is, we had a little misunderstanding with the fire department. Right where the entry road, there's a utility pole and a fire hydrant. We had a little confusion. The fire department thought the nearest hydrant was down the road a little bit. We said, no, there is one right there. It just happens to be covered with a ton of weeds. So that's something, I might have to bring the elevation up a little bit, but that will be addressed. And I guess the local neighbors did mention a fence that was created along the property line there. Preliminarily, I had a discussion with Steve, and Steve, I didn't follow up with you yet. We've been just catching up, so I think I know for the zoning and regulations you have on fencing, it needs to be addressed, and I think we're going to meet Steve out there and have a discussion and then talk it over. I don't have a full explanation on the fence. I haven't, Diane showed me pictures, but we're going to look it over and get with Steve and see if we can straighten that out. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe. I'll answer any site questions, but I think it's real important that you hear Joe's perspective, what this building does.
Yeah, as Scott was saying, that this is a farm to table restaurant, and along the property line there where that fence is are gardens, and just out this side of the parking lot. So part of the experience is actually going to be walking through those gardens and seeing where your food is grown, where the herbs are. And so that's all part of the experience. Do we have the drawings for the building? Oh, do I click forward? Oh, can you go one more?
Why not?
Sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go back. I'm sorry. Yeah, so along here are actually gardens that they planted already, vegetables, and so those are actually going right now. That if you go back to that plan that we were just at, you could see that you can be able to see the parking lot. So you'll be able to see those from the parking lot. We actually, because we're trying to get as many cars as we can, we're going to have to tweak the gardens right there. But one of the things we talked about with the fire department was the location of a Siamese connection for the sprinkler system, and that's going to be right in this corner here. It's a 6,600 building. A restaurant over 5,000 requires sprinklers. So, right in the code, so, and it's a type 5 construction, which is all wood, which is allowed. And so we felt that, you know, coming in here with a fire truck, it's the first thing they'll see. They'll be able to see that to help the sprinkler system if it needs to. That was the issue that we were talking about with the fire department. But can we go to the next slide? I think it's the stations and no. Well, okay. We didn't. Yeah, it's a different project. I thought we sent a packet of. Architectural renderings are there. Okay, and can you just go? So here's the floor plan. Center entrance, dining, actually all down the center. There'll be a large window wall in the back and a lot of glass in the front. On the left side will be a bar area. This will be the bar here. And back here will be, you know, beer cooler, storage area. There'll be booths up front, but open tables. There's a fireplace in the center, a see-through fireplace between the two dining room and the bar that you can, you know, have more of a lounge type area. This is the kitchen here that'll take care of both the dining and the banquet area here. We also have a banquet area that's could serve about 80 people, 60 to 80 people, depending on how you set up the tables. And then toilet rooms, then back of house offices and things like that. They also have a exterior kitchen out here with some grills and smoking. That's going to be tied to the kitchen. The large hood's been in the center. You know, we're going to have to talk a little bit about the grill and stuff outside and how to sure that's. This will be a covered porch, and then these will be flanked by two uncovered patios, which we probably have some umbrella tables. So if you go back to you don't have to, but if you think of how the site plan worked, this actually looks right back at that pond that we were talking about, which is going to be a feature. It's going to have, you know, we don't want it to be just.
You're gonna have a fountain on it or something to keep the water moving so we don't have mosquito problems.
Exactly, right. And again, it's going to be that feature. So you're going to be looking out at this. You know, you're going to be eating here and looking out at that with trails around for the farm. If you go back to that other, yep, and then go to the elevation, I think that's enough. Yeah, so there's the front elevation. You know, going to be wood frame, timber, a lot of timber construction, stone. You know, small sign there. You can go to the next one. I think this is more looking, you know, from the road, just another elevation of it. Now, so yeah, this is the back, and you could see this covered area is all glass, and then all glass in the patio area. So this would all be filled with, you know, diners dining out here, and if they had a party, they'd have it there, like a small meeting, or really kind of too small for a wedding, but it would be good for some small meeting area. So that's what, you know, that's where we are right now with the design. We still have a lot to do. We still talk to, you know, hopefully we can move this forward and get more into the details. Any questions?
Mr. Rosito?
Yes, interested in the pond that everyone seems to be talking about. Steve, would there be a need to have any kind of fencing around it? Like, I know with pools, yes, retention ponds, no, but this is going to attract, if you have people coming there, children maybe, getting near it. I'm wondering how deep it is too.
Mark, we're here, or Kate was listed up here. So the stormwater designs ponds are such that flow into the pond doesn't require fencing.
Minimal slope.
Yes.
Like a 1-on-3 or 1-on-4 slope. It's not like a golf course waterway where you fall. It's like 3 feet down, 2 feet from the edge. It's gentle. So, I mean, it's,
But there's nothing in the building code that would require us to.
Okay, well, I just thought because it's going to attract, people rather than the retention pond, you're not going to go walk up to that.
Yeah.
Might be an issue with safety.
Joe, I'm not worried about the people. I'm worried about the geese.
Yeah, that too.
You may find that you'll be draining that
Well, there's a
pond
restaurant.
because,
it's, geese is on
yeah,
the,
if you go out and shoot them and
Yeah.
then serve them, that would be.
it's on
different. They
the
won't let you
menu.
do
It's
that.
on the menu. We can do that.
They won't let you do that. Yeah.
But
But the geese may be more of a problem than worrying about little kids falling in the pond.
Are you gonna have fish too? Diane, how about some fish?
Catfish?
Now, what was the issue? What's the issue with the fence? The fence has
I
been
can,
put up that,
I can speak to that. Steve can help me out. Diane and Santo, who was unable to attend tonight, they set up a garden. There's a lot of deer, as you know, a lot of
Mhm.
wildlife. Santo took some natural wood and brush and combined that with some wiring. So it's not compliant with a typical fence. So I thought with Steve, we would meet out there, take a look at it, and take it from there. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, but
I've been out, I could see portions of it, particularly from property. All of it goes through the woods, so it's rustic is what I'll say. It looks like it's rustic.
so we may be asked to approve a not normal fence,
Well, we'll see what.
a more natural
what Scott
fence.
comes back, what Scott.
we're going to have a conversation.
Following the property boundaries or not either, it's, it's gonna be meandering.
Well, as long as our neighbors
Yeah.
have agreement with that, I wouldn't have a problem. Well, don't shake your head no yet, because we don't know what it looks like yet. We know that what is there is not okay. Got your work cut out for you.
Every project has a beginning and an end. We're somewhere in the middle.
Mr. Abbey?
I had a couple of questions on the pond, which Joe already asked. In addition to that, I wanted to mention, that's about the paths that you're proposing.
Right.
What type of ground cover are you
Uh,
proposing for the paths?
I think maybe Diane could speak to that, but I think we're just thinking of just mowed paths around the gardens. It might be some gravel and some mulch, might be stone dust, it might be mulch. It's going to be,
At some point, that'll be on the plan.
it'll be on the plan, but it's a garden. I mean, do we need I guess I just want to ask a question. I'm not trying to be difficult, but gardens in a residential backyard, they change. So can we move the garden around a little bit? I mean, we're not, I guess the point is I guess from a stormwater perspective, we're not going to, create a Hafner's concrete path that goes all through the woods. It wouldn't be concrete. I mean, maybe you could speak.
No, they're not gonna be concrete. It's just gonna be, I wish my husband was here. Unfortunately, he's not. Because this is gonna be more of his project, the outside with the paths and that. But they're just gonna be maybe a little bit of gravel or just regular grass paths going through.
I think we're gonna want to see detail, know what you're gonna do, have it part of the plan in the description.
Absolutely.
Mr. Parrish will get into that with you.
Yeah, I mean, the form follows function. We have to get the the pond has not, that's just a shape that I drew. We have to have our engineer design it. And then once we get the drainage swells through the site, then we're going to have to cross a drainage swell. So there'll be a little culvert or a little bridge, and that'll all be on the plan. We're, like I said earlier, we're just, we're not in the beginning, we're not in the end. We just want to let you know we're halfway down the path, no pun intended, getting
Well,
started.
One of the things we're concerned about usually where the public walks, especially like in a parking lot.
Right.
We like those paved. We don't care if they have a demo area where the trailers or whatever they have is sitting and they bring it onto the paved area. But that's why, when you say stone, I was at a apple orchard this past weekend, and they used stone, and it was dangerous because they also had some areas that were concrete, and the stone flowed onto the concrete, and so we'd be really concerned about that. And so if it's either mowed grass or it's mulch, that's even great.
We can leave it natural. Or you're eating in the restaurant and you're looking out, and in fact, they have a restaurant up in Letchworth where they have a pond outside with koi fish. But in Vermont, you're eating, you're overseeing the pond, you're seeing the gardens out there where all the vegetables are, and you're welcome to go out and see, you know, how your things are being grown, and you do know that they are going farm to table. And that was just something we were trying to do here as a new concept that is up and coming, and we were just trying to bring something like that to Bridgeport.
So you will probably be putting some sort of fencing material around the gardens because of
All the
the
deer.
deer and the rabbits and,
Oh, yeah, and there are deer, and
oh, I used to live out there, I know.
we can put venison on there, but, and like I said before, at the last meeting when, in May, when we had the other engineer here, we are gonna try to incorporate other farms in the area to get the meat from them, to try to keep things locally and try to incorporate as much as we can to our restaurant to keep it local. So,
What I was referring to with the pads as a thought was, like in many of the parks, they have like wood chips.
Mhm.
And that eliminates,
well, wood chips or rubber chips, but, you know,
which would help eliminate any mud that might, you know, eventually come up with a lot of traffic.
well, I mean, they're not gonna be walking the whole property. You know, it's just gonna be a portion of it.
Right.
So we're just gonna try to keep it down, but so they could still see what is being grown, how it's being grown. It's gonna be all natural, all organic, no pesticides, you know.
So it's just a suggestion.
Okay, well, thank you.
One thing we didn't, I
Another
felt,
question.
secondary structure. Question. But it would be a maintenance garage. Take mine.
Yeah. Right now, it's kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Mr. Snyder, anything additional? Mr. Bloss,
I'm all set.
Mr. Merzio?
I think that might be.
Started with, like I said.
You know, I think our chairman quite often will say, put on the documents what it is you want complete, because if in fact, for example, you were going to do something with a gazebo or something, but that was in another phase, if you get that all approved from the beginning, you won't have to come back and
Hey, that's future.
right. You can't feed me until you get the restaurant built.
Yeah.
Future renovation subject to time constraint. What are your hours proposed?
Of the hours of the restaurant, basically.
So the 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. That one hour isn't what you had in mind. Thanks. Mr. Bloss,
I'm all set.
Mr. Merzio,
On the previous plan, not gonna differentiate. Down
Yes,
onto it.
yeah. Sounds like.
Yeah.
interesting timing with the mosquito spraying in the pond that you're constructing, but just clarification, that's being constructed for wetland mitigation. It's not, you're not building it because you want a pond on the land. We put a lot of them in.
Something that we had to do.
Exactly. Mr. Procopio? Right in? Okay, we're good for now. You'll be working with Mr. Parrish and do his reviews and work with you on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Trade J, LOSO, for 6477 Lake Shore Road. This is a subdivision, minor subdivision request.
So, other members, it's nice to be back in Cicero and to see all of you again.
Welcome back.
I represent Trade J, and unfortunately, I have not represented them in the past. But I know that they appeared before this board, and the application that you have before you tonight is exactly the same application that you approved. I want to say about a year ago, maybe a few months up. But because of the time frame that they had to file their papers, the approval expired. So we're simply here back again to ask for the same approval, same project. Nothing has changed. They do have a building permit, from what I understand, ready to go once the approval is given by this board and the documents are filed.
This is to remove the marina from the rest of the subdivision, correct?
Yes, it went from a 3-lot subdivision to a 2-lot. And, you know, like I say, the application is identical to the one that was approved.
So the marina is not in this subdivision. Marina is still a
I don't have
separate.
the map in front of me, but it should be on your application. Yeah. Can't see it very well, but
Mr. Snyder, it's one parcel now,
Pardon?
one parcel now. Separating. The marina portion of the lot.
We never approved the marina.
Didn't approve the site plan, existing. You didn't approve any development of the marina. Correct.
Right.
This is
The
just
marina was
subdividing.
outside what we approved when we said Trey J could go ahead and build this situation. The marina was not a part of the project when it got approved. Is it still not a part of the project?
please, so
Right, there's nothing that presented to our office of any development in the marinas. And like Mr. Subdivision was approved separating the lot.
So this subdivision was approved. They just didn't.
They didn't file the map in 90 days.
but they need to get it approved again so they can file them at. But it's strictly a subdivision. That's not a project.
So there's only 2 lots now where there were 3? And the other lot, was that the one they were gonna build a residence on, or? Or-
What if we don't approve it? And this is all just a joke right now, wasting our time.
It's not the law requires what we're doing in order for them to file the maps.
Are you saying we don't have a choice? We have to approve it?
Kind of a formality to
After being reapproved, they still have 90 days also to file the map again. They have another 90 days to file the map. What's a formality?
So what we're saying is they want to, it's going to be lot 1A and 1B is going to be all one. It would, this map says lot 1B includes the marina. Okay.
It included the marina, but no approval of the marina and the work therein.
No site plan approval for anything that did be done already, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
line modifications. Just line modifications. You need a seeker? Mr. Rosito, would you propose a standard seeker, please?
I propose a standing seeker, and that's a form of motion.
Second.
Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Seeker passes. Neil, would you propose a motion for the subdivision? Anybody like to make that motion? I'll make the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
No.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
I vote yes. Anthony, nice seeing you again.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Anthony used to represent the town board years ago. Last item on the agenda is for Mercantile Studio. Property at 8762 Brewerton Road, a proposed existing building renovation. This is a sketch plan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name's Robert Schenfeld, and taught ceramics for 25 years in the city schools, and retired from that to another full-time job of historic restoration. My company primarily restores subway tiles down in Manhattan. My company is the only one vetted by the Transit Authority to reproduce, or we assemble, we buy the parts for the mosaics and we assemble them, and we don't install, but we give them to contractors and they install them. And I've been looking around for a place to move my factory to. I had been renting for a long time, and I decided it was time to, purchase a building. And I don't know if any of you have tried to purchase a building today. It's very difficult. There isn't anything that doesn't need to be completely redone. So I found this property with a little bit of acreage and basically a pole barn that will really suit our needs for our assembly process. So we propose to, turn it into an area where we can work. I have about, 2 or 3 employees that work with us. Some of the projects we've done in the past are under the New World Trade, under the Trade Center, Cortlandt Street. We've done about 50 different projects over the past 10 to 15 years. And there should have been a little flyer of the things we do. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you. And so we also, wanted to have a little showroom in the front because people are interested in what we do. We've been pretty much under the radar. My company is a word of mouth. We do, we work with all the major contractors and engineers in New York City. We did a job last year where the governor, approved our tile color for about 15 subway entrances. So, we get a lot of attention there, but, upstate and locally, we really don't. We do assemble tiles for Stickley Furniture. And then, that's pretty much it.
So if somebody wanted to do a real great shower for their wife to have,
Yeah,
you'd be the guy that we'd come to.
I would be the guy, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the
not
work
cheap.
looks great.
Put it that way, what we do is historic. We've been, working with the historic preservationists in Manhattan, like I said, for the past 10 to 15 years. And their quality of work and their expectations are really high. So we go through a long submittal, process of assembly. So we're going to be doing Wall Street coming up, Times Square. Some of the major ones are coming up. We have about 15 stations currently getting ready to go. So there was, because of COVID, everything stopped for 8 months there. And right now everybody's like, okay, we're back on track, not to use a pun, but they're ready to get back working for us to assemble. And so, it ended up being a little bit more, in depth in terms of making it into, a place where my workers could work, but it actually will work out great because it can be exactly how we want it. So instead of tearing out something, we're just.
So you don't do the installations yourself?
No, that's union, so we're not union. I can't, our union living wages for a tile installer are $99 an hour plus benefits. And,
Pretty intricate.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the wrong end of it.
I'm in the wrong end of it. Yeah, I've been asked to do that, form a company to do that, but, I used to travel to New York City 2-3 times a week, and now, I go maybe once a month.
Only have a crew of about 3 people?
Yeah, we're, most of our projects are 2 and 3 years out, you know, and it's usually a 6 to 9 month turnaround. And they know it, you know, and the projects, you know, it's all spelled out in our contracts that we work out with them. And, you know, being the only company, you know, that does it, they, you know, approach us, you know, usually a year or two in advance so that there's plenty of time.
You're doing your own design work yourself?
No, actually, the architects design it. When the MTA goes through and does restoration of, say, like right now, they're putting in a lot of elevators to the stations. So they'll take out a wall and then put an elevator in, and then we come back with, you know, the pattern that's provided for us and reinstall the mosaic around it, or the tiles, the historic tiles. You know, it's you know, it's kind of neat. You know, I was one of the first ones I did was Columbus Circle, and that's right where Trump Towers are. And we got done. We made 10 of these giant, you know, Columbus Circle signs, and we got all of them installed. And I'm standing there with a couple of the contractors, and a train pulls up, and about 20 high school kids pour out of the train and run over in front of the sign that we just put there of Columbus Circle and had their picture taken. You know, and I thought, wow, that's kind of neat that, you know, I was part of their history. So, I mean, the subways, you know, I don't know if any of you have been there. They're always falling apart, always need repair. You know, in my company, like I said, every contract that goes out with the MTA has my company name on it. Yeah, the company to choose. Now, they can use another company, but they'd have to vet them. Nobody wants to do that. And we're certified made in America. So, you know, we have everything done here, you know, and now Cicero. Yeah. And it's a little, you know, not a lot of people know about what we do.
Where do you get your tiles?
Huh?
Where do you
Oh,
get
we
your
buy
tiles?
different, you know, there's different companies in the US that make them for us. They're little strips, you know, and there's one in California that we get it from, and there's another one in Pennsylvania. And then we buy the glazes. We, you know, that's the one thing that we apply. So we buy the blank tile, the strips, and we put color on it. And then we have a machine that chops them up, and it's all hand assembly. And it's usually about 100 pieces per square foot. And yeah, you know, that's why it, you know, they started about $250 a square foot, depending upon the complexity of it. A lot of them, there are medallions that we do, different, you know, designs, and, you know, and over the course of us doing it, we've uncovered a lot of history in the mosaics. You know, they were done originally by the Masons. They were installed, and there's a lot of symbols in the mosaics, you know, that we found, and just, you know, interesting things that are
Back to ancient times.
yeah. Well, when we were working on Columbus Circle, they cut a hole in the wall because they were gonna, you know, they found that there was a wall in front of a wall, and they do that a lot when they change stations around. They opened up a wall section, and they found, you know, samples of the original installations behind the wall. So they cut a bigger hole, and they put a piece of glass in there so people could look in and see it. You know, they started around the turn of the century, and the idea was that there were two actual basic ideas. And the one was they wanted to have a museum for people to see artwork on the walls. Every day they're riding their stations, you know, they wanted to make something so that, you know, it was like they felt like they were in a museum. And the second thing was that they could identify their stop. You know, they're going along, and all of a sudden they see the mosaic that you know, they know is their stop, and they know when to get off the train. So.
Did you say you can restore ceramic tile?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
What do you, to restore it, what would you do?
Well, what we do is, well, we do two things. We do the restoration in part of taking the original tiles. A lot of times they'll take them out of the wall, remove them, okay? And like large terracotta pieces also. And we have this material that we fill in. It's kind of like a putty into the tile, and then put a special paint over top of it. And so that way it takes it back to the original, you know, makeup of what it was. In Columbus Circle, they were done, the original terracotta pieces were done by a company and an owner called Groovy. Now, Groovy, making tiles at the time too. And he had a tile that was 8 inches by 8 inches. That was hand painted by him that sold at Sotheby's for $600,000. Yeah. One tile. Yeah, and then we were working on 96th Street and we were doing a terracotta, and there are these large friezes that go along the top of the subway entrance and the subway walls. And the interesting thing about it is the floor, the ground of the road is the ceiling of the subways, because they couldn't dig down far enough because it was all bedrock. So they actually put the station tracks on the floor of the bedrock, and then the roads were built on top of that. So they were jackhammering down into the sidewalk, and they went down through into the terracotta and broke them out. And they were actually, a lot of the funding is state funding because of the historic value of it. And these contractors got really nervous, and they threw them into a dumpster. Well, the conservation people found it, and made them take it all out. And so we ended up having to put it all back together again, So that's our, restoration part. And then the other part is taking and, making it look like the original. And another time we were working on these, terracotta friezes, and there was an article in not a paper, like online or somewhere, and said that, because now when we went there to do it, they found a bunch of the original pieces, okay? And they usually give us, they'll take out of the wall one piece and give it to us. But they found a whole room full of these terracotta pieces. And I come into the office and the guy goes, hey, because we hear that somebody's trying to sell one of these terracotta pieces online. Not me. And they said they were offering $1 million terracotta piece. Well, I have the one that I have, and you can have it back when I'm done with it, but it wasn't me, So, but they said, these pieces are extremely valuable. Part of history.
You do some really amazing work, and it's going to be good to have you in the town.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's get back to the planning.
I'm sorry.
No, it's very interesting stuff, and it's the pictures, if you have a chance to see them, it's really beautiful work that you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosito, any,
It's awesome. Like to see it here.
Mr. Abbey?
The building that we'll be working with, what is it now?
The storage building.
Oh, just storage?
Yeah, it's got a concrete floor and 12-foot ceilings, which are 14-foot ceilings, which are perfect for us. I think there's some pictures of it if you scroll off. End of it, it's just like a metal building. It looks like a lot of the other buildings along that road, except for that's it right there. But we plan to build a little front on it, put some, a nice entryway, some windows across the front, and the front would be where we, showcase what we do, to architects. We're working with, we're doing a project right now in Fayetteville called the Wellington House. I don't know if any of you know. We're redoing their floor. Yeah, and then there's other projects that we've done around, like library entryways and stuff like that that are historic. I work with the local historians. Not a lot because, it's.
Where are you operating out of now?
In Syracuse on Erie Boulevard, or on Thompson Road. It's an old factory building. We've been there. Yeah. It just is, the rent keeps going up and up and up, and I'm like, wow, why don't I put that money into a building and equity? And, I'd look for 3 years to find a building. Every building that's out there, things that you got to put 1,000 into. I'm going to put that kind of money into it. I want it the way I want it and brand.
If you find another one of those $1 million tiles, you're fine.
Yeah, right. Well, we've been fortunate. The SBA has been very, very generous with the economic development and PPP.
Be a nice addition to Cicero.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, well, hopefully, it's an up and coming area, we also are gonna be doing tiles for a company that makes countertops in Carrier Circle. And they supply all the countertops to Home Depot and Lowe's, so we're gonna make backsplashes for that.
Mr. Snyder.
Wish we could spend more time.
I know, I'm sorry.
Talking about your industry. I hope that when you are done, if this gets approved, and I don't know why it wouldn't, I would hope you would have an area where people like me can come and watch through a window what you do.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah, it's interesting
this
stuff.
kind of stuff drives me crazy. I love it.
Yeah, it's different.
You talk about on the drawing, you talk about few parking spaces for people would come in.
Right, right in the front. Yeah.
I'm not sure that may be, if you've got 2 or 3 people that are there.
Well, we're planning,
Plus,
I think
well,
we're planning a back parking area.
Okay, well, then you're going to show that on the.
Yeah, right. And then we just did the
You know,
perk test today and we're gonna.
We tend as a group not to approve gravel driveways if people are, especially if people are going to be walking on. Also, we have that white stuff, in Syracuse called snow.
Yeah.
And gravel driveways don't plow real good.
Oh. Well, I think it's gonna be too late for us to do that driveway this year, but that's something we plan to do.
So if that is true,
In the
then
park.
I would show it here. And
Okay.
then when you talk about it, and our next time, you can indicate when you'll be doing that.
Right, and the other thing we were thinking about, and this just kind of came to my mind today, was maybe a solar panel area on the side, because we do use a lot of electricity. That would be, and we'll show that on the next.
That part of our, no solar right now? It's not, right? We're talking about big commercial solar.
No, yeah.
Mr. Boss,
I'm all set.
Mr. Merzia. It is fascinating.
It is.
As far as, you got the 3 employees, are there customers that visit the site?
But not
Not
much.
much?
No, not much, because we're really not open to the public. We do have like a launch of something new that we're doing, maybe by invitation. That's about it.
How about deliveries?
Deliveries are all done by UPS, our van.
No large trucks bringing in the material. You're gonna want to show elevation, what you plan on doing as far as windows and that kind of thing. You want to show that on?
I believe it's on
Yeah, it is.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Any dumpster on the site?
there. Yeah, I gotta show that where that's gonna be.
Steve, anything? You know anything at this point? Mr. Parrish, our engineer, who's on vacation this week, will review it with you and work with you on next time we get together.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here in Cicero.
Happy to have you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, great.
That concludes the agenda items. Any discussion, comments from the board team? Do we have a motion to adjourn?